If we go back to like January 2020, what did your life look like, and how did you operate as a chef? Like, what was your world like at that time?
Let me think back, because I'm like, wait, 2020?
Before the pandemic, we were making really healthy and delicious school lunches from scratch.
I was an executive chef at the airport.
At the time, we were doing farm dinners. So we were sitting 50 people in a long table at a farm.
Early 2020, things were going great at the restaurant.
There was almost like this best year ever like vibe going around.
We were looking at new locations.
Our menu was as big as it had ever been.
Valentine's Day, I mean, no surprise we're a dessert spot, but it was our busiest day to date.
I was getting ready to go, film season 1 of Fast Foodies.
For New Year's Eve, it was me, my best friend, and my then fiance, and we made a cake, and then we like wrote on it, "Let's get it." We got it, just not the way that we wanted it, It's horrible. So yeah, we jinxed it. Yeah, that's it.
March is supposed to be like one of the busiest months for travel. I was told rumors like, oh, last year during spring break season, sometimes you have to sleep at the airport. What was expected to be a crazy month, we were just seeing a super huge decline in sales and travelers.
Business was pretty slow because people were starting to get more concerned.
We were hearing all these rumblings and things happening overseas.
There was sub-conversations starting to happen. There was whispers of, people who knew people in Washington and in government that something was coming.
We had opened our bar, that opened, and then COVID hit literally the next week.
We were in Florida for this wedding, and on the day of the wedding, they put a curfew.
Suddenly everything came to a crashing halt.
That's when I started getting phone calls from my peers, my coworkers.
That's when it kind of was like, okay, this is really bad. This isn't just like a really bad cold season. This is something bigger than that.
I think the actual shutdown happened or was announced on that Monday.
We were all in my household, in my parents' household, we were all like, oh, the disconnect that happened with the pandemic and the shutdown was so abrupt.
It was a forced closure. We were told that you had to shut down.
You can't go to the gym, you can't go outside, you can't do anything, you can barely go to the grocery store.
There was just no options. There was no conversation, there was no real understanding.
Not knowing what was going to happen was really the biggest challenge for me.
We realized we had coolers full of food that we weren't going to be able to sell.
We were probably sitting on $5,000 to $6,000 of perishables in our cooler. We invited all staff from our various restaurants to come and just kind of pillage the cooler and take whatever they needed.
We just gave away all the food and like, guys, take what you want.
A lot of great, wonderful chefs in the community. We put all that food and say, okay, come and get it.
We turned one of my restaurants at that time, Public Kitchen, into a free community market. All of the restaurants in the neighborhood dropped all of their produce or anything that was going to go bad off at the restaurant. We just decided to open it up and give it away for free. We said we were going to open at 9 a.m. and by 7 a.m. there was a line 500 people deep wrapping around blocks of service industry people waiting to come in and get free food.
It's hard to worry about your own children and then another family too, which is your restaurant family, and trying to do the best by them.
We had to furlough our line cooks and our sous chefs at first and our prep cooks, the whole kitchen was furloughed.
Walking into my director's office and he's like, I need you to lay off 87 people today. That's difficult.
I felt a lot of guilt because I was still employed and I had to call my employees and then tell them that they had to go on unemployment.
By like 3, 4 o'clock, I was just numb. I was just defeated. And I just kind of knew it was like a ticking time bomb. Like, all right, I'm next, I know. By 4 o'clock that day, I myself was let go and laid off.
When I left to go to Florida, we were a fully staffed restaurant. When I came back, there was a handful of people. When I say handful, I'm talking very much literally one handful of people.
We have a team of people that are in the hospitality business because they love it, and that was taken away from them.
I get the chills because it was just like the rope was just cut off.
The needle scratched across the record, there was no music, and we sat in our silence for a while like, oh my God.
I remember feeling at first kind of relieved that we would get some time away out of the building.
To be totally honest, it was kind of nice.
When I found out we were gonna be closed for like months, I was like, wow, I have a summer off for the first time. Like at least not working to the bone, you know, for the first time in years.
I went from working a 65-hour work week to just like nothing.
Once you're like catering for a while, all of that becomes just like a machine. You don't think about it as much, all of the stuff. But then when you stop and have that hiatus, it was a lot. I bet you a lot of people felt that. I know a lot of people felt that.
It was like, well, what do I do now?
I have nothing outside of work. I was a workaholic.
The first couple of weeks, I felt numb. I felt like I was worthless.
With our work, it's so intertwined in our life. It's not this like work-life balance or this work-life separation. Everything just kind of flows together.
You know, I have never really taken time for myself, so I don't even have clear or distinct hobbies.
My whole life, whether it's what I'm reading or what I'm daydreaming on or what I'm working at or what I'm doing at home, it's all revolving around food and cooking and taking care of people.
That's when I started like doing online cooking videos. That was some fun shit.
That was also one of the great opportunities within the pandemic, was like that time.
We needed that time to just kind of recover and recoup. And it was like the thing that we didn't know we needed, but we did need it.
I, for one, don't remember having had a full weekend off in 40 years. And all of a sudden I'm having one after the other with my children, with my family. That felt awesome.
I got to spend the first year of my son's life with him every day. And that's something that never would have happened. I got to see him crawl for the first time and walk for the first time. And those are things that I might have missed if I was working every day.
My culinary family was finally able to enjoy their own families.
That was a real blessing for me.
My husband has a job. He virtually worked all day, so I was with the kids all day. And then at night, it was literally staying up until 2 a.m, you know, trying to save my business.
One of the hardest things was taking, you know, restaurant operations, stopping them, considering exactly what you'd need to do for to-go operations, and then opening.
Our location is outside of an office building. Since there was no one in these office buildings anymore, the huge parking lots were empty. We offered those parking lots for people to tailgate.
We lost business. People were going outside and not grabbing food as takeout.
Barbecue in general, and is a to-go food, and having people outside, they just felt more comfortable to come to us.
I was doing cooking classes before, but they became a lot more lucrative once they became virtual.
Take and bake became really popular during this entire thing. And so we did that with our baked goods.
Now we had waiting lists and triple times the applicants than we could even take.
We couldn't even keep up with the demand.
There were hundreds and hundreds of people sometimes attending some of these virtual sessions.
Everyone was scrambling for trying to get the same thing at the same time. We saw our packaging prices, our protein prices shot up. Between all those things, it was a nightmare for running a restaurant.
There was a good 4 months where I was just didn't sleep at all.
April to June or July, it was just a crapshoot.
Ever since until today, it's just been one fucking thing after the other of just okay, what's next?
Running from one fire to one fire to one fire to one fire to one fire with no safety net.
I was just constantly in a state of worry.
There was a couple times where I was just like, forget this. And I couldn't really tell anybody that, you know. I would never really want anybody to sense that from me.
There were moments where it just seemed helpless. There were just so many questions in the air about what was going to happen next week. There was no way to predict what was going to happen. Minneapolis, you know, was a city on fire last year too.
I feel like it's hard to separate our COVID anxiety in this city to everything else that happened around the murder of George Floyd.
When George Floyd was murdered, on top of all of this stuff, everything stopped.
Watching that video and then everything else that was going around was very affecting to me.
The day that George Floyd was murdered, and subsequently the day after, or a couple days later, we get a call from a restaurant across the street saying, hey, they're trying to get into your restaurants. I'm on the phone, I call security at City Center. They're on the phone with me, and I can literally hear noises in the back. They're getting shot at inside our restaurant. All the front doors are getting shattered. There was literally this much booze all over the floor.
I live within a mile or less than a mile from the precinct. When the unrest happened, I was waking up to ashes in my backyard, my house covered in ashes.
This thing is like hitting you and you don't know what it feels.
It was a dark time to be a person of color in this city.
For me, I was like, you know, I gotta pause because now I'm feeling the mental wear. I decided that it was time for me to step away. It was sort of like taking a big breath and just exhaling.
That moment in time redefined us for the better forever. We permanently made a decision that we're not gonna speak about racism, we're not gonna speak about social justice, we are gonna do something about it.
All of that made people think differently about how we invest our time, our energy, our money, our resources.
We are starting to do things on purpose for the BIPOC community that we didn't do before. It's just the truth.
The James Beard Foundation put out a lot of really awesome webinars over this time, and it was just like really nice to see more conversations start to happen about the lack of diversity within the food industry and gatekeeping.
There's these systems, and they're not really great systems, and everybody is affected by it.
The long hours, the low pay, the lack of benefits, the mental health issues, the substance abuse issues, and just some of these toxic environments.
You know, it's kind of like you cut your finger, you wrap it up and you keep working. You get burned, you wrap it up and you keep working.
I've been in restaurants where, you know, the individual isn't the most important thing, the bottom line is.
I think it's great that people are starting to really pay attention to this and be held accountable.
Quite honestly, I was part of that. How do I detoxify it, and how do I change it for people who are coming after me?
Now it's just really trying to do the work and figure out how to make that happen.
When we reopened, we decided to reopen without accepting tips.
Adding a service charge of 20% and having that pay for our wages allows us to stay in business. Being able to pay our employees $20+ an hour is because of the service charge.
When we started reopening, we said, hey, we're only gonna be open 5 days a week.
I'll give you my 50-55 and I'll give you that in 5 days, but I want my 2 days off. More people like myself are setting our boundaries.
You're just gonna have to deal with it. These are the right things to do.
People in our business right now are struggling with this so hard because they just want it to go back. They want it to go back, and we're never gonna be that again.
I think that people are also coming around to realizing, you know, the lack of workers in the industry has a lot to do with the industry itself.
I've never in my career seen more now hiring signs. I've never been more understaffed across the board. I think, you know, people got used to that self-time, that family time, that, you know, exploring hobbies, picking up things they forgot that they loved. A lot of people just left the industry, and more power to them.
I would say right now, people think that we've like fully recovered.
We may be open, but we're not back to normal.
Our dining room is still closed at World Street Kitchen. Like this, it's been a year and a half.
A lot more people are transitioning to, you know, like a pared down menu, limited hours and lower overhead.
We probably reduced our menu by about 30 or 40%.
The restaurant industry was struggling so hard this spring. A lot of my staff are teachers or college kids, and my nighttime kitchen crew is 4 17-year-olds and a 16-year-old.
We don't have, you know, the ability to hire all the people we want to. We don't have the ability to buy certain foods anymore. The food chain is messed up.
There's a glass shortage, there's a chicken breast shortage. We couldn't get Corona Light in because there's a can shortage.
Everything at the grocery store has raised in price because of the transportation, because of it's all affected.
There are just like random things I would run out of this summer, and people would just furious. I could write a book from the stories and complaints I got this summer.
I think everybody's story is different depending on the neighborhood they're in, depending on the clientele, but, you know, the city, the staff.
Our guests and our clientele are are great people. I mean, it's not something that we have a ton of problems with.
We are partners with the Timballs, thousands of people. I have seen the guest check average be higher. I have seen the tips be better. So my hat's off to a lot of those people who are going out and supporting the industry.
We were, lucky enough at Handsome Hog. I mean, the second the doors open, we've had our busiest year ever.
Restaurants have been busy. Every restaurant I go to, it's packed.
There's silver linings, are tough to find, but they're there.
We did open 2 brand new restaurants during, right in the middle of COVID.
I opened two restaurants in 2 different states during COVID.
I've seen a lot of food trucks convert to restaurants. I've seen a lot more female and minority-owned restaurants that are popping up.
I've done multiple interviews like this, and they're usually the same. Like, how did you survive COVID? It's like, was it hard? Was it this? Was it, it's like, of course it was hard. It's hard for everybody. But let's talk about the good that came from it,
Dumplings take a lot of time. We had nothing but time at home, so we were able to invest ourselves into making these things. I, started making a batch and just tossed it out to my, 350 followers on my personal Instagram and asked people how many people wanted some dumplings, and got 40 people, 40 orders. It grew super fast, and that was amazing to see the kind of support from the community.
Once restaurants started back opening, I was starting to get business from people who were wanting to have Sunday dinners and family dinners. And the thing was that it was just me cooking. It was like an aha moment, if you will, to use that word. That was sort of like, okay, Nettie, you love cooking.
Our little thing has been kind of a light in our lives, where we're able to feed people, we're able to see happy faces every week.
There's still a pandemic going on, but I am feeding people and connecting with them.
Seeing all this support out of the community and, not even wanting anything in return aside from some dumplings, has been amazing. And the fact that it's through food and through food that I've grown up eating, that's from my mom, that means the world to me.
Sorry. It saved me. Because I was giving, but what I was getting from everybody, they kept breathing life into me. I don't think that the diners, that they will ever know what they gave to me.
You feel like friendships from strangers. Strangers feel like they know you, feel like they understand a little bit about you just from eating your food and listening to your story.
I don't think I would have been able to have this very candid conversation with a total stranger like yourself prior to last year. And here we are, I gotta share this story because maybe it's gonna inspire somebody.
I hope that we don't forget where we were and that we all chipped in and helped each other out.
We're able to get over trauma very, very quickly. Sometimes as soon as the next big headline hits, we forgot about what just happened. So I hope that doesn't happen this time, when it comes to society and this industry. There's obviously a lot of work to get done to get us where we need to be, but I think there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel.